Hey everybody, it's Amanda with Faith Grows Deep. We are going to start our chronological study. So I got my Strong's Concordance, the interlinear, my Bible, my markers, not markers, they're Bible highlighters, I guess. Bible pens, whatever. Probably don't really need those today, but I do have my things here and my notebook for my questions and notes as we break this apart. We're starting with Genesis. It says 1 through 3, but we're not getting that far into this because I kind of break things up. But we're just going to kind of zoom through here in an aspect of, I'm going to go through this on video, kind of go through that study a little bit, and then that part's probably going to go through the process. I don't know how to do that, but I'm sure my son does. He went through a video production class. Anyway, I'll have him help me with that part of it. And then I will come back on towards the end and we will discuss the parts I read through and what I learned and broke apart from this. So it's just going to go in little sections and pieces. So nothing extreme. We're kind of going to break it down. I like to go through the sections of stories if possible before I get into instead of chapters. So I try to break it apart by story, but sometimes that is hard to do. So anyway, going through Genesis, it looks like it's starting with the history of creation until it gets to chapter 2. But that story tends to fall into chapter 2 a little bit. So I'm probably not going to get quite that far, so I might only do a couple paragraphs at a time. So anyway, let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, so this portion, I actually had already gone through a small piece of this, so I didn't have to redo those notes or anything or look them back up. There was a couple things I kind of just looked over real quick. Actually, I can show you my notes that I took. Some of it I ended up skipping over that I wrote down. Not that I skipped it. I looked at it, and because as I was looking into it, it was the literal meaning, there was no reason for me to have to expand on that in my notes. So I kind of wrote these here. I look it up in Strong's, and if it's not a literal meaning of what's written, then if it has like another context of the meaning of something, I'll write that down. So I do, as I went through that, I actually found a possible typo in the interlinear. So dealing with waters, because what I found in that was that it said something about being the junction or seam. And although I can kind of see how it might have fallen into this, all of the other words of the same thing were actually, I think, 32. Hold on, I can tell you exactly. Too far. Okay. It said that it was 43.25 for the other ones, but when I got it in the first section here, it said it was 42.25, so I think that was a typo and it was meant to be 43.25 instead of 42.25. So although I had done this before and didn't get further than that, I do have that note in there. But if you saw me write in my Bible through the little quick run through thing, I just put typo next to that note, so I kind of knew that that didn't actually go there. So anyway, as I went through looking at this, because I am going through from the beginning with you guys, okay, we have Genesis 1 through 8. That's what I got through day 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. Then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. So, sorry, I got autoimmune crap, I get drippy. So as I'm breaking through, so verses 1 and 2, okay, so going back, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the first verse. I happened to look at the beginning to find that I probably didn't need to actually write the note, but I wrote it in there anyway, just for that total verification, because sometimes people have those questions, but what was before that? But this was the beginning, meaning the very start, the very first of anything. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Heavens is relating to the vastness beyond our clouds in the sky. So anything beyond that, it is all considered heavens. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So it's the next sentence in verse 2. So the earth being without form, being void, meaning nothing, and darkness, literal darkness, was on the face of the deep. So pretty much everything there is literal. However, I looked up what the face was to mean. And for that, it is talking about the visible surface of something. So darkness was on the face of the deep being a mass of water or the abyss. Like that's what the meaning of the deep refers to. There are references as we continue further. We get into other things with that, but right now, this is all we're sitting at. So given everything in the context of what is to follow in these next couple verses we're going into, I would conclude that this is meaning the mass of water. So the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So the surface of the waters was dark. That's kind of what I'm concluding with that. And the remaining part of verse 2, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So I did expand on spirit. It is capitalized, so clearly it is speaking of the Spirit, or the Holy Spirit. So I did reference that. And the Spirit can also reference like wind or breath, the being of God. So, of course, that is the third, the Holy Spirit. It is referring to that being the Spirit of God. However, as things come into existence, that breath of God, like, speaks it into existence, right? So that kind of has that aspect of it as well. So anyway, the Spirit of God, the being of God, was hovering over the face of the waters. I have hovering, which says to be, in Hebrew, it means to be moving gently. So I guess hovering, I don't know. We see hovering as just kind of sitting over, but this is like moving gently. So it kind of has a, I don't know, in my mind, it kind of has this like gentle sway of something like hovering over. So it, as opposed to like, my parents hovering over me. We don't gently hover over our children, okay? Anyway, moving on. So just kind of in this way, the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. This is the literal meaning of waters. That's the part I wrote the typo in. Continuing on, verse 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I do not have anything listed in notes for this because it is all talking about a literal day, a literal night, literal light, literal darkness, okay? Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. 3 and 4, okay, this is 5. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. So now we're done with day 1. Moving on, this is where I was writing notes. I didn't have these yet. For verses 6 through 8 that we get into, you probably noticed firmament, firmament, firmament. So that is in here a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times within these 3 verses. So I kind of did a word study on that basically. So then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." That is literal waters. I will go ahead and give that explanation of firmament. So as we continue with these next ones, it is all talking about the same thing. So the firmament is the visible arch in the sky. With heavenly bodies, it is simple and beautiful, fixed and steadfast. It is not fickle or uncertain, but regulated by law that it cannot pass over. In relation to even planets, okay, they're not in a circle, they're in an orbit. They are ever changing, but they are always the same. So thinking of that even though it's something that changes to a point, it's the same, it stays the same. It can, like, even as the earth rotates, it might be rotating, which makes change, but it is the same because it never loses that orbit. But speaking in a firmament aspect, it is that arch in the sky. And although, like, it is simple, it is beautiful, it is fixed and steadfast, it is not, like, fickle and uncertain. That is not a thing. Regulated by law that it cannot pass over. I take all that, when God created that firmament, it was set in place by certain parameters, by him creating it, that it stays within whatever those parameters were set, but it cannot change beyond that. Which is why I also added the extra explanation of the ever-changing but always the same. All of those things were in the Strong's Concordance for that word. That would be 7549 if you are looking. Also means an expanse. So keep that in mind as we're reading through the rest of what the firmament really is, okay? So then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. 7. Thus God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. So that's where I stopped. We'll get back into this and we will continue starting with verse 9. So anyway, that's kind of like the little section, even though it seems like, oh, it's Genesis, it's just whatever. It really does have some expansion of meaning if you look into it more, other than just the basic general thinking of it, you know. So it just kind of, for me, it helps to have a deeper appreciation for what was created and what it is referring to. So anyway, that is our first section of our deep study, going chronologically. Again, this is just Genesis 1 through 8. I hope you enjoy. If there was anything else, or maybe your translation has something different and maybe kind of explains what I looked up, like, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. I also have in the description, I have my email if you would like to share your testimony, or if you have any comments you prefer sharing privately, you can email that as well. If you have any prayer requests, good or bad, I would love to hear them. I'd love to praise for anything you're going through, or anything you're struggling or just trying to get through. I'd love to pray for you in that as well. All right, anyway, I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.